Good morning, one and all. Happy Wednesday to all of you. Thank you for joining me again, day two of Daily Dose of Reality with me, AJ Roberts. The last episode we did yesterday was exceptionally well received. I've had a lot of feedback from it, especially around the information I was sharing about the complexity to do with the COVID interventions and how people have dealt with them and things people can do to rectify their situation. So the feedback I've had has been absolutely phenomenal. I knew doing these daily lives would be extremely beneficial, hence why I want to continue doing them, and we'll have a different subject conversation every day. And it's a great way for other people to interact with the information I'm sharing, and basically to take what resonates with you for your journey. That's the whole point. As I was mentioning yesterday, I've spent the last 6 years doing podcasts where I've often been the person doing the interviewing, bringing the people forward, and getting the information out from quote unquote experts or people that have experienced that line of work and have amazing things to bring to the table. But the downside of that is that I myself personally have all this knowledge and wisdom and downloads and everything else like that. That's not all for me. A lot of it I've experienced myself, and I'm supposed to experience it all myself to then share. And this is the point of doing these morning lives, is that anybody who tunes in or rewatches back later can join in that conversation and take from it what they need for their jigsaw puzzle. Because that's literally what's happening right now. We're all being presented with these big jigsaw puzzles in front of us. There's several gaps missing, and it's basically our personal quest to plug those gaps with those jigsaw pieces from the areas that we need. Okay, it's not, our jigsaw puzzle does not look the same. Mine doesn't look at the same as yours. Yours doesn't look the same as the next person's. And this is what this quest of life is all about. This is why I often joke and say that life is literally like a real life game of Zelda. For those of you who can remember Zelda from back in the day, where it's like a little first person platform game. We go on this brilliant little adventure. Messengers pop up into your reality to give you the clues and the keys you need to get you to the next level. And that's literally what we experience on a day-to-day basis in this game, in this reality, in this simulation. And once you kind of realize that is the case, that like you are Truman, that you are Neo in your story, that you are the Lion King, that you are Jon Snow. Like when you realize you are all these characters, and that often a lot of this media and movies and series and everything else like that has actually been placed there for you as remembrance to activate these things in you, everything becomes so much more simple. Now, I wish I could have said this to you a few years ago, but I was obviously going through my own journey, my own changes of events. And that's what I wanted to talk about today, was actually relationships and the twin flames, and the misconception around twin flame unions and the language that's used, and even things like family breakups and soul connection. I think that they all work hand in hand unanimously, and everybody's experiencing this kind of thing with it, like within their own relationships right now, or have done over the last couple of years. So I thought it was really important to kind of share with you a bit about my story, really, and then people can kind of relate to in their own way. So when we talk about relationships in a 3D world, right, we've all grown up in that realm. We've all been born into this earth by our mother. Okay, we've had parents at some point in our life, brothers and sisters, aunties and uncles, wider family, etc., etc. We've gone to school, we've grown up, we've gone and got a job, we've gone into a career, we've gone down particular paths that we believe were the right paths for us at the time, when actually, like, all of those paths were actually just setting us up for this period now. I always say that you don't need to be in the military to have been a soldier, that we're actually all soldiers first, and we are. Everything we've endured and experienced up until now has basically been our training for this next stage. Okay, the prophesized introduction and birth of New Earth was always going to happen in our lifetimes is that everything that we've done previous till now has been basically training for this next stage. So me being in the military for 15 years, specifically in the engineers, where I learned about explosives and demolitions and mine warfare and et cetera, lots of very tactical things that obviously you have to use your mind for, okay, that raise your awareness to like massive levels. And that training always stays with you. So like everywhere I go, I'm very vigilant. I see things coming a mile off. And obviously that training helped me when it comes to seeing through the bullshit in COVID, for example. I was always going to see the threats early on. And you guys have all like experienced the same in your own ways, like whatever trade you may have done, whatever line of work you may have done, everything down to like your favorite films, the songs you listened to as a kid, like all this kind of stuff, like it all packages together as part of your remembrance package for now, because we've gone past that stage. And everybody watching and listening to this, I know who tunes into my content is very much at that stage now where they've broken through all the like well, pretty much most of the stages of illusion, remove the veils of illusion, can see the world for what it is, very clear clarity, very clear understanding now of what the world's been used for, and so have humans and our children, and know that like collectively that we manifest and we create new earth. Now, often, as is the case, and it is with myself, that isn't with our original partners or our original lifetime partners or husbands and wives, etc., fiancés. Okay. My marriage ended in a couple of years ago, and that was after 20 years. You know, my marriage ended from an absolute beautiful soul, beautiful lady, mother of my children, who was on very much a spiritual path herself. But this very, very strong beating drum in my chest was telling me otherwise. And it wasn't just about my relationship. It was actually about where I was located. It was about what I was experiencing at the time. I was, I found myself in lots of loops. I was literally looking around going like, nothing changes. Everybody's just doing the same shit. Everyone's just getting up every morning, going to the same jobs, feeding the systems. I was living in a new build house. Yes, it was our home, and we kind of tried to make it our family home. But I was looking around and I was like, everything's just square, everything's just straight, everything's just like a box that we're supposed to fill with all this furniture and items and things. You know, I was looking across the road and then seeing the neighbors come out every day, just being like, just running on a program. You look around the estate and it's like everyone's kind of brainwashed into this belief system that like getting on the property ladder and getting the help to buy schemes and getting all this stuff gets you into these, you know, houses, and you can start your life, and it's all amazing when you're just being rinsed obviously by the banks, and everybody else wants a piece of the pie, right? You know, to move into a new build house or to move out of it, there's about 6 or 7, maybe 8 different entities involved just for you to even do that. So it's like, so you're not living in your own house. And I was like, I was in a town which should be in Salisbury, which should be, one for a better word, very spiritual. It should be very Glastonbury like. But I was soon realizing the negative energy that was cast upon Salisbury and the wider areas. I was very quickly seeing this is why we have the military training areas there on this powerful land, to keep the vibration low, and to keep you in a smaller world, a smaller box of illusion. But you got the military on your doorstep. I was seeing all these things so clearly. At the same time, this beating drum in my chest was just like boom, boom, boom. And I was just like, what is this? What is this? What is this? About that time, back in early 2024, I was becoming very called to plant medicines as well, as are people all over the world. Okay, we have our own calling to certain medicines. Okay, and that's something that I can literally unequivocally prove, having run many retreats and sat with many medicines myself, is that it is a natural calling for the person back to that medicine or different types of medicines, because that is what helps them unlock the DNA codes, life path, purpose, all this kind of stuff. So just like I was explaining about the Zelda game, it is literally like this. The plant medicines help people, certain people, it's in their DNA template to unlock parts of the neuro pathways, parts of their path, their mission, and all that kind of stuff. And plant medicines is very much the thing that helps me do that initially. But what the medicines did show me was there, like it does for everybody else, is areas of your life that need healing. And at that time, I was like, wow, I didn't like turning the lens inward like that. I didn't see just how much I needed to heal within myself, but that wasn't being reflected back to me. It was beautiful support, lots of love, and all this kind of stuff. This is where Corin came into my life. Well, Corin came into my life, back in like 2021, 2022, very much when I was in the fight mode. And it was off the back of a podcast that I was doing. So I was doing about 3 podcasts a week. For those of you who remember, I hope you brought your brie this morning. Lovely nettle tea from the land. And Corin was listening to one of my podcasts, and it was actually a podcast on midazolam. So for those of you who can remember back in those days, obviously a big threat to people in care homes and hospitals when they were getting admitted and labelled with COVID was the use of midazolam on them, obviously the end-of-life drug, which was killing loads of people, especially in the care homes. And I was showing people the magnitude of that. And it was that episode that Corin listened to that literally sparked something in her. I was like, wow, who is this guy speaking my language? Like, she felt very isolated, very alone. Like, none of her family were like thinking like this. You know, very few were seeing through COVID, very similar to myself. And then she reached out to me and basically asked if I needed help with the podcast. And she just wanted to get involved somehow because the children were very young and it wasn't like she can go to protest or anything else like that. So she reached out to me and I probably had about 15, 20 people reach out to me at the same time. And I didn't get back to any of them, but I got back to Corin. It was just a natural resonance. And our relationship just grew from there. It was very kind of professional. I was doing a lot of talks and a lot of events and was really getting into taking breath work and stuff like that. So Corin wanted to really help me do events up north, help me with the ones down south, attend as many as she could. And it kind of went from there really. And our relationship grew because we were running the events together. It was very much part of our DNA. We were getting people together and creating these activations before we even really knew that's what we were doing. And it wasn't until later on that Cora's relationship obviously broke down with her previous marriage. And then she realized, oh, this dude, AJ, is like my twin flame. Obviously, things evolved from there. And then I found myself very much sitting with plant medicines. The medicines didn't show me like you need to end your marriage and stuff like that. It's not that the medicines don't work like that. It's areas of your life that need healing. And I soon realized that Corin was this fucking amazing mirror that was cracking open all the things in me and showing me the areas of my life that I needed to heal. Nobody else in my life had ever done that or came close. So I'm trying to like work out in my head what the fuck is going on. At the same time, I've like got this really strong feelings I need to end my marriage. And at the same time, I'm like, I've got 2 beautiful children who I love to the end of the earth, would do anything for. But it's like, wow, like I need to leave. But at the same time, it wasn't just about Corin and it wasn't just about me having to get out of Salisbury. It was actually, there was loads of things involved. There was reconnecting with my soul lineage up north. Lots of soul retrieval when I moved up to Grimsby, obviously very heavily connected to the Vikings. And, you know, cast forward a couple of years, I run an amazing men's group and that I've created together. And every single one of the dudes is absolute Viking. You know, people come to our house from the northeast and the east side of the coast and have that kind of connection. We're getting them in droves coming to our house. So it was about reconnecting with that soul part of me as well. And this is how big and this is. So for anybody that's been in a relationship or a marriage and has left and has actually moved somewhere else, often a big part of that moving is because we're retrieving parts of our soul. And we've been doing it all our lives, like all these key temples, places of interest, special kind of land, places around the world that you've been to where you felt emotional, cried even, things like that. Like, so you know what I'm talking about. And this was part of this journey for me. To then end up here in Lincoln, like with Corin, with the children, by Lincoln Cathedral, which I'm heavily connected to, if you haven't worked that out already, on literally living just off what the Viking Way in this amazing house with this land that literally activates every single person that comes here, who receive the codes every time they come here, and receive beautiful healing every time they come here. So that whole journey was about going through a journey of self-healing through past relationships, through to remove to experience guilt at the highest level, okay, to experience pain and loss and grief, because in the same period that, pretty much in the same 2-month period that I ended my marriage and moved up north, my mother died whilst I was in Portugal, and that whole process was a very, very difficult time. And it's actually taken me the best part of a year and a half to actually work on myself so hard, around my mother wounds, that I now experience my mother in angelic form. I literally experienced the woman who poisoned herself, refused to heal, was very angry, could be narcissistic. She she had a lot of loving manners about her, a lot of mannerisms about her, and community. Like, she was always about the community. She ran a fantastic pub, which always created great things. You know, that couldn't be denied. So all of this was all happening at the same time, and it took a lot of inner work, a lot of deep inner work. But also, what it actually brought to the surface for me and Corin was the actual real definition of what a twin flame is and what a twin flame union is. Previous to, like, actually properly getting together and moving in together, and me taking on 3 young children as well. So my children are older, 20 and 18. Me taking on 3 young children at the time. At the time, I think they were like 8, 10, and 12. So it was a big deal, you know, going back to school runs, going back to all this kind of stuff. It was like a lot to take on, as well as trying to build mission consciousness together, knowing that we're on our right path. It was an extremely difficult time. But what that did was, and what people don't see on social media, is us cracking open things in each other, which isn't always pretty. There were some very, very ugly times, you know, and I joke about it, but there was times where, like, we'd have a bit of a blowout, and when you're mirrors to each other, I could literally be expelling all of the egoic 3D ego patterns that I've lived through my whole entire life, because they need to be released. At the same time, Corin would be doing hers, and it would be like, blah, 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 and it's just like this mirror to each other, like bouncing off each other, like bomb, 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 bomb. Nothing's actually getting achieved other than actually releasing and voicing out into the ether your actual personal frustrations from previous lives and previous relationships. You're actually getting them out on each other. You're cracking that open on each other. At the time, it doesn't feel like it. At the time, she'd storm off, and I'd want to fucking punch her in the back of the head on the way out the door, like, because I was like, what's this woman doing to me? But deep down, what she was doing was cracking open the things in me that I need to see about myself, and I was doing the exact same with her. And we've had this, like, crazy, beautiful journey where it's been like that for, like, a long time. Even when we've been on our retreats, because the medicine's working through you, you're cracking open the things in each other. So basically, in summary, what I'm trying to say is that, like, many people can go on these twin flame journeys, but it isn't pretty. And myself and Corin don't actually like using the term twin flame. We feel it's another one of these saturated terminologies that's been used in the spiritual world that basically we can attach to. And that's something I've learned myself, like, in the physical, and from all the work that Corin does, and seeing her journey. But the beautiful thing is, we're seeing so many of these unions coming together within our community. The other night, on Monday night, we had the pleasure of visiting our beautiful brother and his partner, Simon and Michelle, who'd done our facilitators courses in the past. And Simon was running his own first event in his where he lives, in his hometown, you know, and it was all local people that come, and it was so magical to watch. Well, what's great for us to watch is to see that their relationship come together, and it started at one of our events in Royston, which is actually where I did my basic training in the army. So it all connects like so beautifully well. And it was again, we witnessed a soul connection between two people who just made eye contact, and they were like, "I know you." And lo and behold, they live in this beautiful house with a new puppy, very much part of our community. Come to all the events, retreats, and everything else like that. And then, and it doesn't stop there. You know, we're seeing so many people come together. We're seeing so many people who are having twin flame activations in our events, and suddenly realizing there's someone in the room who they're deeply connected to. But again, that's part of our work and the activation work that we do. So me and Corin were always going to go through these stages of emotions and pain and loss and grief, etc., but supporting each other at the same time for these times, so that that we're not just, we don't want to be, we never class ourselves as a mirror to other people in that kind of sense, because everyone's on their own journeys. However, um, twin flame unions and divine unions partnerships are coming together very, very quickly. Not just within our community, and that's what, again, why I wanted to talk about the subject, is because it's happening all over the world. But also we can get caught up with the whole I need to meet my twin flame union. I have to meet my twin flame now. And then suddenly someone pops up on the internet and you're just like so drawn to them. You can get caught in that whole notion that they're your twin flame. And the worst thing you can do is contact them and start telling them, especially if they're in a relationship, you know. And again, that's something that I've experienced myself. And it's not good for the other person. It's not fair. It's not just. Your souls will come together and they will align because they're supposed to, and you've got to trust in that. It's surrendering to that. It's surrendering to that beating drum in your chest that you then listen to, and then that's what guides you to your path. And I've done a lot of like workshops and a lot of talks and stuff with men, especially who are in this kind of stage where they feel that like they're just pulling a wage, they're turning up every day, they're just like on the tools, they're in a job they hate, they're masking all their emotions with alcohol, cocaine, vapes, accumulators, you name it, and it's not serving them at all. And it's often because they're masking the fact that they're slowly starting to realize that the relationship they're in isn't the relationship they're supposed to be in, and they don't know what that feels like. And the only thing it feels like is painful, horrible, because as a father, the first thing you think of is like, oh my God, like breaking my kids' hearts. I don't want to upset my kids. Like, how will my kids live without their dad? Like all these kind of stuff. And I'm seeing it everywhere. Like, and I speak to a lot of guys on a daily basis who are in these kind of cycles at the moment. And that's why I really wanted to talk about this kind of subject, because it's not just relevant to the ladies. You know, it's a big part of men, a lot of men's awakening. And there's a lot of guys in my circle that I've created that are not in their original marriages, and that they're in their quote unquote twin flame relationship now. And if you sat and listened to their stories, they're all beautifully amazing. They involve every type of emotion you can possibly think of, because that's what it takes. It takes the heartbreak, it takes the pain, it takes the endless lying on the grass outside, bawling your eyes out to the universe, because you're feeling like umpteen amounts of guilt because you've hurt your children, and all this kind of stuff. And children and adults alike will come round to certain things, because we've all got to live our lives, right? At the same time, people leave relationships, there's somebody left on the other side. And that person, then goes through their own version of spiritual awakening. That could involve having to become more independent because their partner's left, who may, perhaps brought in most of the wages, or was very much the protector or role model, all this kind of stuff, right? So the person who's left has to suddenly jump into all those roles at the same time as going through all their pain and grief and emotion. So it is a bit of a whirlwind, and you could call it an absolute clusterfuck at first, but it does work out in the end. And I've been told by spiritual teachers that twin flames don't work. I've been told by spiritual teachers that Corin isn't good. She's of dark energy. I've been told by spiritual teachers that you'll never forgive yourself. The guilt will stay with you forever. I've literally been told all sorts, and I see where these people came into my life and for what reason. And I'm sure you've all got your versions of events as well, for those of you who are watching and listening. But just know, that it does get absolutely amazing. And when you are on your path and you are with your divine union, like you got to sit there and be really grateful that they did crack open all those things in you. Because if they didn't crack open all those things in you, you're going to be still full of old emotions, full of old attachments, full of old pain, full of old grief, and it doesn't leave you until you're aligned with where you're supposed to be and what you're supposed to be doing. And I couldn't be more grateful for that. I still have a beautiful relationship with my son. My daughter, I haven't spoken to since the start of the year, but I haven't seen her since my mom's funeral. Obviously, that was this is a battle that I was always going to have to endure, and it could go on for however long. But it's about seeing it from a higher perspective. It is painful not speaking to your children. It is horrible not seeing a photo of them. It is horrible not seeing how they're developing and growing up and what their interests are and having those conversations with them. It's awful. It's awful visiting the same town that they live and then driving off knowing that you can't get to see them when you're a stone throw away. It's not good. But at the same time, it makes you so fucking resilient and so powerful in what you do and your mission. It's hard to describe. So know that, like, if you're on this path, you've got this drum that's beating hard in your chest. You need to listen to it. Don't make rash, silly decisions. That won't serve you. It's actually teaching you to sit with all your emotions, sit with all the things that you feel in the body, because that's what we're here to do, ladies and gents. We're here to feel it all in the body, and that's why our body is the most sophisticated, highest of technology on this planet. It's why they need to keep our bodies so inflamed and full of stress and anger and grief and low emotions. So the fact that you all know that should tell you in itself, like, what your body is actually about and why it's so important to nourish it in the right ways, stress-free as possible, away from all the toxins, etc., etc., etc. It creates a lot of blockages when we're not looking after our vessel. Again, we're all being taught this in our own ways, right? I'm not teaching you to suck eggs here. You know this. We're being taught all of this as part of this journey, just to be so considerate over how amazing this body is and the signals and everything it gives us, and our ability to transmute energy, alchemize energy, but also spread love, activate other people with our field because we've done the inner work. And this all works in this beautiful unison. It all absolutely does. So often people find themselves as a result of this, like, literally in between two worlds. And this story is kind of written itself between me and Corin and the children. And as a result of that, Corin actually wrote her first book, Between Two Worlds. And it's actually helped thousands of people, like, from different countries. And it's not like a ridiculously thick book, but it's also not a book that you just pick up, read once and go, "All right, nice one." It's a book that you come back to often because it's for people that are in those voids, like we both were, and even our partners both were, and many people in our family and friends both were. So, we're in this time for many people where we're in this void. We literally feel like we're between two worlds, and we're all experiencing it at the minute, aren't we, ladies and gents? Right? We're experiencing this biopurification of the planet and the split of two worlds, where all these souls are all coming together on unison, reconnecting with their tribe very, very quickly, literally at warp speed, and at the same time seeing the old world from a higher perspective, literally like the eagle here in Corin's book. I'm seeing things from a higher perspective, and that's what the book's about, Between Two Worlds. Is like seeing everything from a higher perspective, that eagle vision, just like we name our events, and then you can see everything from a higher plane. So then we're not being reactive, we're not making rash decisions, and we know that like we're flying in that void, observing where we actually need to go. So she wrote that book basically off her own personal journey, because both of us were in that space, but you know, so are millions of other people at this crazy time in human history. And then she subsequently, not long after, brought this book out, The Truth in the Mirror, a twin flame awakening. And that's based on kind of like our journey, but also she very quickly at the start of it dispels the term twin flame, and has only used it as reference because it's part of like so many people's psyche, you know, just like we've all been brought up to watch the news in the past. So and they're both on Waterstones, which I'm like couldn't be more buzzing about. I do pinch myself sometimes when I sit there and she's working with the horse in the paddock at the front of our house. And I'm not talking like this to make herself all like rich and everything, because we're not. You know, that is a big false judgment that we live in a nice big country house and in a farm, so we've got to have millions of pounds. It's absolutely not that case whatsoever. We don't own this farm. We use the farm, and the farm is used to create magic. So we always have what we need month to month, and to be able to do our role, to be able to live our role. Corin getting a horse was part of her dreams as being a child. So I love watching her literally living her dream in her big house with her horse. And that's all she's ever wanted. Like, she's not wanted fast cars or anything else like that. All she's ever wanted was a nice house with her children to have land to play on with a horse. And that's what she's created. And it's been created like through us. And I was always fearful of horses growing up, and even as an adult, didn't like being around them. But now it's like, and I didn't like pugs, and I wasn't fond of cats. And now I literally have a pug, a cat, and a horse within a 10-meter radius of me all the time. So it just goes to show you like what can get cracked open in you. These things that we hold as fears, these things that we hold as things, you know, not fears and phobias. You know, it just goes to show us that a lot of us, we place that upon ourselves because it's actually steering us away from the very things that are part of our life, actually part of our lives. So, you know, if you've got fears of heights or spiders and things like that, there's things that are placed upon you to stop you from actually reaching where you need to reach. You know, I do a lot of work with the land and stargates and all this kind of stuff. I had a fear of horses. Where's the Stargate in the UK? Where the white horses in Pewsey Vale near Salisbury, where I used to live, and where the army do a lot of military training. So, you know, that in itself just goes to show you that we play a lot of these fears and that are placed upon us to steer us away from our true path. So yeah, Corin's books, The Truth in the Mirror, A Twin Flame Awakening, and Between Two Worlds, are both on Waterstones. Again, like being in a relationship with somebody and learning the ways and the beauty of horses, and even around cats. Like, I watch the cat all the time. I watch how he stalks. I watch how he moves, like his mannerisms, how he can literally condense energy in certain rooms. Like, so I've learned so much around like the physical and the spiritual aspects of cats as well. Still struggling with a pug, and the fact, you know, I call him Dragon Pig because if his breath gets anywhere near you, it will literally melt your face. So I'm still working Stanley the pug out. But just the fact that like my other half is a published author and has 2 books in Waterstones, and on Amazon, you know, and it's absolutely amazing. I'll stick the link for I'll stick the link in the comments. Apologies, I can't comment on Facebook because it's on my profile. But this is for YouTube and X. So that's the link if anybody wants to look at Corin's book. on Waterstones or anything else like that, I thoroughly recommend it. This isn't me trying to plug it or sell it. I just know how many people it's helped, and it's very relevant to this conversation. And she does a lot of work with people with the books as well, like in small groups, because there is a lot of people going through a lot of big changes in their lives. A lot of people's relationships are breaking down. They don't know why. They don't know what's happening to them. Some people are just getting up in the morning and like, wow, I'm not supposed to be here. I'm not supposed to be with this person. So this is why I wanted to do this episode today, to talk about these relationships, because it is happening. It's happening in real time. I could talk to you about galactic stuff and spaceships, and what's happening at an esoteric level, and that the freaking King Charles is a galactic envoy as an actor and all this kind of stuff, right? I could literally talk all day about that if you really wanted me to, but it doesn't actually serve anybody or enough people right now, when so many people are going through real time, real life human experiences around relationships. And that's part of it, ladies and gents. Part of this human experience, as I mentioned before, is to feel it all in the body, to experience it all in the mind. The lessons I've learned from a breakdown of a 20-year marriage, leaving my children, moving up north to a place that I know no one, leaving my old community, friends, and my own family. I could write a book myself just on all those lessons and everything I've learned from that whole experience over the last couple of years. So, and I know it's not just pertinent to me. I know it's so many of you going through it all. But know that, like myself, Corin, and our community that we've created, Mission Consciousness, is there for everybody, for people like yourselves who are going through all of this stuff. You don't need to be isolated. You don't need to be on your own. Like I've been saying for so many years, you need to find your tribe. Your tribe might not be with our community, but your tribe's out there. Your tribe who thinks the same as you, the tribe who resonates with you, the tribe who is on your doorstep and you don't even know it, is out there. Okay. And this is part of this journey, is now finding that tribe. It's taking organic aligned action to finding your community, to finding your tribe. Because if you don't take organic aligned action, you're just going to live in like multiple loops, just like most people do, running on programs on a day-to-day basis. And we don't want to be in those situations. We want to be in flow. Okay. We want to be literally channeling what we need to do on a day-to-day basis from source for ourselves. Okay. We don't need to have readings of people. We don't need to sit with anybody else to be told this, that, or the other about us. We need to be in a position where we're on our life's path, on our soul's journey, listening to that beating drum, living day to day meticulously with purpose, not waiting to see what comes, not waiting to see if somebody's going to save us, not waiting to see what next government's coming in or who's the next prime minister going to be. We know that's all bollocks, right? We know that's all surface level illusion. Okay, we're not here for that now. So if you're watching and listening to this, cut ties with all of that. You don't need to. You don't need any of it. So all you need to do now is focus on your life's path, focus on your soul's journey, however that may look, and it literally will fall into place for you, because that's how the universe works, because you're doing the work on yourself. And as you're doing the work on yourself, that inside world is reflected in your outside world every day of the week, every passing minute. So I wanted to talk about that kind of stuff with you guys this morning. I'm very aware that lots of people are in precarious situations right now. They don't know where to turn. They don't know where to look. They're not seeing great advice. Things aren't resonating with them, and that's why I wanted to talk about this subject, this twin flame union, this divine union, conscious uncouplings, all this kind of stuff, because it is extremely important. And I just wanted to share my story with you, a bit of my story, so that it hopefully resonates and that you can take what you need from it, and use what you need, to plug the gaps in that jigsaw piece, in that jigsaw puzzle, because that's what this is all about. And I just want to be of service and of help to as many people as possible out there, just like I do with the podcast and everything else like that, to help you all just literally plug all those little gaps, bridge those gaps to where you need to be on your soul journey. Thanks for joining me this morning. I am off to the amazing Energy Centre, which is Lincoln Cathedral, Going to do some very important work there with my soul mum, Jane Denham. Love you, Mo. If you're not connected to Jane yet, make sure you do. She's in my friends list. She is the most unbelievable soul mum you could ever imagine, ever. She speaks from the heart. She speaks her mind. She doesn't take any shit. She knows her path. She knows how powerful she is. She knows how connected to the earth she is. She knows how Magdalene she is. So make sure you give her a follow as well. But I'll be back tomorrow, around about the same time, between 9 and 9:30. So if you haven't done so already, maybe stick the notifications on of when I go live. I'm pretty sure you can do that. And that way you get notified when I'm actually jumping on. And I'm pretty sure, and you could subscribe on YouTube if you haven't done so already, so you get the notifications. Because I want to bring like important topics like this to the forefront every single day. Tomorrow, I think I'm going to talk about like ascension symptoms and things like that people are feeling right now. And I'm doing that based on the amount of DMs that I receive on a daily basis from people asking for help and advice and what they're experiencing. I can't answer everybody. You know, some days I'm just like, you know, like Bruce Almighty when everyone comes in with all their prayers and he just goes, yes to all. You know, I don't want to be in that position. So by doing these daily videos and daily updates and stuff like that, that is my way of basically typing out all the answers so that everybody can get what they need from the talk. So tomorrow I'm going to talk about like ascension symptoms, what we're feeling physically and esoterically. And please come at me with loads of your experiences and chat in the comments as well, guys. It's really important. All right. I'm off to see the wizard, and I'll see you guys tomorrow. Much love, team.